Hi folks, and welcome today to a bit of an overview of the Autopot system. In the greenhouse behind me, I've just finished installing my first ever Autopot system, and really I wanted to give you guys a bit of an overview and just kind of an introduction to, it's not really an experiment, but I'm trying it out for the first time this year, and as we go through the year I'm going to be doing a bit of an update on the progress and kind of like a long-term review, I guess. And there's an awful lot of Autopot products. All the links are in the description. There's no affiliate, I get nothing from it. The company did send me this to have a go on, but to be honest, they just wanted an honest thoughts, honest reviews, and it's something I've wanted to try out for a really long time. Most of you will be familiar with the quad grows, which I've done a few videos on. There's some tomatoes in a quad grow over there. And the Autopot is similar. We're going to talk through kind of how the system works and some of the other details today. Now I must admit, when I was first looking at the Autopot systems, I was quite confused and a little bit overwhelmed by the number of different options. And to put it kind of simply, I think for a greenhouse grower, an allotment grower or a back garden grower, a hobby grower, there are two main Autopot products that you'll want to look at. The first is what's called the one-pot system. That's what I've got, and I've got 4 of the one-pots. It's sold as a kind of 4-pot starter kit. Or you can get what's called the Easy to Grow. And the Easy to Grow is basically the same as the one pot, but the unit kind of comes paired. So instead of just having one pot with a little valve that I'll talk about, it's one valve with 2 pots. So what is this valve? Well, if I take this cover off, I can show you. This is what it looks like. It's patented and it's called the Aqua valve. You can see it's currently open and letting water in. And the thing that's kind of special about this, there it goes, it's just clicked. So there's kind of 2 floats in here, and basically what it does is it will fill the reservoir with a little bit of water, and then it won't kind of flood. Once it gets to a certain level, it clicks off, and that allows your plant to start drinking the water. Instead of flooding this tray with kind of constant water as the level goes down, the plant will kind of dry out a little bit, which is very important, especially for something like a chili. You don't want the soil to become completely and utterly waterlogged, because that will kill your roots. They need oxygen. So this kind of valve will shut on and off. And what is quite cool about it is having a valve for each individual pot means each plant will kind of dictate how much water it needs to that valve. And so I've got a range of plants, mostly chili peppers, well, 3 chili peppers. So we've got 1, 2, 3 chili peppers. And then to see how this does, I've got a watermelon. This is one of my sugar baby watermelons, famously hungry and thirsty plants. So this will kind of be asking the valve, well, it doesn't really communicate with it, but the valve will be giving this much more water as it's readily absorbed and used by the plant. And this over here is the reservoir. So it's very simple. You kind of hook this up, you plumb it all in, you fill this with water, and because it's black, it does allow the water to get to a nice temperature as well, which I always think makes quite a big difference for your plants. I did do a video showing me kind of potting these up, and really it's a little bit late. I potted these up into their final pots, into kind of 10-litre pots, and then they've gone into these 15-litre pots. One thing to mention, because of the flooding, they do need quite a lot of drainage. So the recommended mix is something in the bottom. I'll leave a link in the description to the instructions. One thing is the instructions are really good, really thorough, and so you either use kind of clay pebbles in the base, or I was sent a specific kind of plastic base that you insert, and then I've just mixed lots and lots of perlite into my potting mix for drainage. The setup itself is fairly simple. I will admit I had a bit of trouble getting some of the push fit connections in, and you do need to be comfortable making a few cuts in the pipe. You have to cut the pipe to your bespoke needs, but that's one of the really cool things about Autopots is they're extremely customizable. So the configuration I've gone for is kind of an opposites, but you could as well have them all in one line. And I've got these things pretty much as close together as I could possibly get them. And to do that, I've had to cut the pipe quite small, but that was all fairly simple. It was just actually installing the pipe into the fittings that I had a little bit of trouble with, but you can apparently just dip them into a bit of boiling water. That really softens it up and makes everything much easier to work with. The owner of the company has done a brilliant how to install guide. I'll link that in the description. Really, really thorough. And I'm very glad I watched that before I did this, but it is all quite simple. One of the other things that's really cool about this is it's still kind of a one-man show, you know, it's the owner of the company that's doing the how-to guides, and these are really well used by commercial growers, you know, people going at scale. And that's one of the other things about this, is it's extremely customizable, extremely scalable. And one of the coolest things, I think, is that you can buy every single individual piece on the website. So if anything breaks, anything spares that you need, you can get them from the website. I think that's really rare nowadays. You know, most of the time it's like if something breaks, you got to buy the whole thing all over again. But no, with this, you can just buy every little piece. And if you set this up in a configuration that doesn't suit, or it's kind of temporary, because I think I'm going to change this up next year, you just have to buy some new pipe, cut that to the new sizing, and everything can be refitted. Another really cool thing as well, they've iterated on the product quite a lot. They're still coming up with lots of new designs, and I'm using a design that's been around for a little while, but it's got the blue pipe, which is a larger gauge. You might see some of the old black pipe systems still being installed. They're still fine, they're still usable, but the blue pipe is better if you're using organic fertilizer, because it can just be a bit chunky, basically, and get the old pipes clogged up. They do also have a massive range of fertilizers that they've been working on, and you see those NutriGrow fertilizers I love and I really, really rate, but they have sent me this easy to grow liquid plant fertilizer. There's a litre here, and you need 250 millilitres to fill up this reservoir, but that should last a really good long while. And so it's going to be interesting to see how these chili peppers do compared to the rest. They will not only be having a different fertilizer, but also this kind of much more reliable watering, because it is something I'm not the best at. Something I would really like to do in the future is try this out with tomatoes, and tomatoes are probably much better suited as well to the easy to grow, or the kind of the paired system where there's just one valve that serves 2 pots, because I'm guessing that one valve with 2 pots is going to run a bit wetter than these individual pots, and that means for a chili pepper it might not suit so well, but tomatoes much thirstier, much more likely to just be using that water as quickly as it's given to them. So that's what's cool though, is all I need to do, if I want to add more things to this system, change out this T-piece at the end and just pipe more things onto it, and it can all serve the same thing. It's all gravity based, so that's kind of a selling point really, is that you don't have to worry about power or anything else. It makes it quite well suited for allotments. I've just raised it up on a couple of blocks, basically nothing fancy, but just gives it a bit of elevation, make sure that the water can find its level. Now, one thing I would say is that if you're pretty handy and you're pretty dedicated, you've got a bit of time, you could just rig up your own very similar system. Or what you could do is buy a few of these parts and kind of customize around the rest, because you could probably come up with your own reservoir, you could drill your own hole, just buy a few bits of the attachments, the pipe, and the valves if you want to use this kind of on-off valve, and then rig up something with your own pots or your own reservoirs, and you could work it that way and probably save quite a bit of money. The kind of best, the optimum things that I see for irrigation, they use power, they use pumps, and they use timing, they use circuits and that kind of thing. This is all very simple compared to that, but I think will give pretty good results. Now, one reason you might want to do that is because this is quite expensive. I might do a quick cons, you know, pros and cons, but this 4-pot system retails at about 120. There are cheaper systems, and you can, if you want, just start with 2 and then add more as you go. You know, if you like to, you can add 2 more and add 2 more each year. Something like that, but £120, I can't lie, that's a lot of money. That's a big outlay. Whether or not that is worth it for you is only a question that you can decide. I quite often get asked, do you think it's worth it? And I don't know about your personal circumstances. I don't know how tight money is, and I would consider this probably a bit of a luxury. You know, in terms of the pros, you've got the convenience of it. You can go away on holiday. You don't actually have to worry. This is a 47 litre reservoir, so that will keep your plants going for quite a long time, I should think. It makes feeding much easier. You've seen some of my previous videos, hopefully, about feeding, and that can be a real time sink when you've got to measure everything out, put everything into individual watering cans, and then go around watering your plants individually. All you have to do with this, mix the feed up in the reservoir, you're done. That's it, simple. Things I've already mentioned, there's no power. It's very customizable to your own space. Also, it is worth, if you do want to have a look at some of their other products, it's really quite interesting. They've got some things for seed trays to keep your seed trays moist. That's really cool. These pots come with little propagators that you can put on. There's a four divider, so you can put in kind of 4 seedlings and then take them out and pot them on into your big pots later on in the season. That's really, really cool. I think I might try that actually. And then a quick overview of the negatives, the cost, the requirement of cutting pipe, which it just might be enough to put some people off. I know it made me a bit nervous. You guys know what I'm like with DIY, and you know, having to make cuts that can't be undone. You know, there is actually loads of spare pipe, I should say that. This was all left over after mine. I mean, I did mine in quite a space-saving configuration, but if I had made any errors, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, and I could just cut it again. It was a little bit fiddly to get stuff in. I had to use as much strength as I possibly could on some of them. My fingers are still hurting today, but there are ways around it that I could have used. It probably does require a bit of a cleanup at the end of the season and a bit of storage, but that's kind of to be expected. And one other negative maybe is about space efficiency. So the 1-pot system, especially, for every 15-litre pot, you've also got the valve on the floor next to it. And to be honest, for something in a 15-litre pot, you're gonna wanna be giving it that space around it anyway. But if you like to use smaller pots and really cram things in, then this probably will take up a little bit more space. If you've got any questions about this, or if there's anything I missed, please do let me know in the comments below. But that is an overview of my 4-pot system. I can't wait to see how it goes throughout the rest of the season. You guys are going to see it lots and lots in the garden vlogs, I'm sure. An extra special thank you to my Chili Pepper tier patrons, Tony, Bill, Pam, Louise, Michael, Mel, Denise and Craig. And thank you to everyone for watching. Hopefully I'll see you again next time.